Hello and welcome to another edition of the People's Lawyer channel. Today we're looking at home education, and this is Home Education Alert Part 2, which is a follow-up, of course, to Part 1. Now, the main purpose of this particular video is twofold. It's to reinforce the resolve of families who are already home educating, to reinforce their resolve to stay home educating in the light of impending tyrannical legislation such as the schools bill, for example. The other purpose of this particular video is to encourage others who are on the fence, who are about to home educate, or who are thinking about home educating but haven't taken the plunge yet, is to encourage them to do the right thing and to pull their boy or girl as soon as possible out of the danger zone, out of harm's way. This is the layout of today's video. It's in 4 parts. Part 1 is a call to freedom, a call to action, and it is designed to give you an even more direct remedy than we set out in Part 1. Part 2, we are going to explode some myths about home education. There are probably a lot more myths, but we're going to pick on about 5 of them. Part 3, we'll be looking at what you can expect away from school. And Part 4, we will look at what you are missing out on at school. So firstly, Part 1, the call to freedom. Whereas in Part 1 of Home Education Alert, we looked at some remedies that included letter writing and putting up notices on our door, privacy notices. Well, this remedy that we're going to suggest is far more direct and will work as long as you have the confidence. And it basically involves no engagement whatsoever with authorities, none whatsoever. We do not speak to them. We do not answer texts. We do not answer phone calls. We do not answer the door. And basically, we are adopting the gypsy strategy, which is do not say anything, do not do anything, do not cooperate. Remember that what they need for them to do their paperwork is for you to have cooperated in the first place. So there is remedy in writing, but you have to have been trained and you have to know what you're doing. If you're nervous about the whole process, it's better just to give them nothing. If they have nothing to work with, they can do nothing. There was a recent visit to a community center, which is in effect a home education hub, and the Ofsted inspectors were blocked at the door. Can't come in, and they had to go home. And there was another example recently of Ofsted inspectors coming to a center in Manchester. And again, when the inspectors asked for names of the boys and girls being educated in an alternative environment, the directors of the environment just said, we can't give you those names. It's data protected and we wouldn't give you them anyway. This is how you prevent the escalation, which can become notices, statutory attendance orders, and in the worst case scenario, fines and imprisonment. Let's move on to Part 2. Let's explode some myths about home education. The first myth is that boys and girls need to be in school to socialize. Well, quite frankly, this is utter nonsense. Most of these myths are simply the truth inverted. In fact, a small-scale study in Canada found that home-educated boys and girls are far more confident, more sociable, more affable. They bully less, they have less neuroses, and they're more at ease speaking to adults, to grown-ups. And anecdotally, I can tell you from my own experience that boys and girls that are schooled have got real problems socializing, asking questions, being confident. They really are bullied by the school, not just by other boys and girls in the playground, but the system is turning boys and girls into a shadow of what they should be. And in another situation that I have personal experience of, when home educated boys and girls mix with schooled children, The home educated children find that they have real difficulty with the schooled children because the schooled children are just too immature. They don't know how to have a proper conversation. They don't know how to relate to others. And they often engage in bullying to disguise their problems. Home educated children, it's not that they're perfect, but when they have issues with other boys and girls or even adults, the conflict is resolved much more easily and painlessly. Another myth is that if you don't send your boy or girl to school, they will suffer educationally. Well, this is actually a joke. This is a prank. In fact, what we're all finding, and we've been finding for a long time now, is that schooling is turning generation after generation of children into, let's face it, morons. They can hardly count, they can hardly read, they don't know how to relate to themselves and others, and they are backwards in many respects, certainly when you compare them to home educated children. And I do that all the time. So this is a ridiculous idea that children suffer educationally. In fact, the downgrading or dumbing down of children at schools is so bad now that if you compare 19th century school maths with 21st century school maths, you'll find that in the 19th century, what they're now doing in the 21st century at degree level, they were doing in the 19th century at year 8 or 9 level. So 12 and 13-year-olds were doing maths that now is tackled by 20-year-olds. Another myth is that they won't get to university. Well, again, ridiculous. You can actually go to university from the age of 25 without having any academic qualifications whatsoever. But even if you attempt to go to university before that age, 18, 19, 20, if you go to an interview with the confidence and eloquence and enthusiasm of the average home educated boy or girl or young man or woman, you fly through their audition. And I personally believe that no university has ever rejected a home educated boy or girl. We would have to question in this day and age whether going to university is a good idea at all, but that's a choice for the boy or girl, and it's not really for me to say. Number 4 of the myths is children kept at home soon get bored to tears. Well, again, this may happen in the odd case, and it will probably tend to happen to boys or girls that were in school that have been pulled out. And what is happening is that the deschooling process takes place and they cannot cope with having the authority and the power over their own time. And they are short of ideas as to how to spend that time. But that will wear off. Boys and girls who have never been to school will never, ever have that problem because they will be used to being the decision maker and being basically autonomous. And ideally, they will be surrounded by siblings or other local boys and girls, and together they co-create all the adventures and the learning experiences that they have. So the idea of boredom is simply ridiculous. Another myth is that parents cannot be teachers. Well, the role of the parent, the responsible parent, or the responsible mother or father, I should say, who is taking a proactive stance in their boy or girl's education, is not to be a teacher. It's to be a role model and, above all, to be a co-learner. In the book, School No Place for Children, which I published 4 years ago, there are anecdotes from amazed parents, and I use that term loosely if you've been watching my other videos, let's call them mums and dads then, who are absolutely flabbergasted at how exciting it is for both them and their boy or girl to embark on a learning adventure together. And it also helps them bond. Something that doesn't happen in school is there is no bonding between the parent and the child. And again, I use those terms loosely because the child is absent because the child is at school. And when the child comes home, the parent is absent because they've got other things on their mind. They've spent all day at work and they may have their own social life, or they may not be particularly maternal or paternal. There are all kinds of variables involved. But if you are responsible enough to keep your boy or girl at home, then you will bond. And that is one of the most amazing spin-offs, the magical spin-off that can surprise even those who can see on the surface major advantages to keeping the boy or girl at home. Part 3. So what can you expect to happen out of school? Well, we've already looked or hinted at some of those amazing fringe benefits, but here's another non-exhaustive list to give you a taste of freedom. Firstly, you'll discover life. The boy or girl will discover life outside of the incarceration, the prison camp, the classroom laboratory, the sterile environment that is the average classroom. Secondly, you'll learn from experience, because as you're having a life, that will provide you with experiences. The classroom is meant to be the planet. Thirdly, this will preserve your enthusiasm and hunger for learning. So each day will have buoyancy and positivity and excitement rather than boredom, routine, and the degradation of being every day in the same place when you would rather be elsewhere. Fourthly, your time is your own. Well, if you are destined to be what's known as souverain in lawful terms, or sovereign, if you like, or just your own boss in the vernacular, in other words, self-defining, then you need to get used to that at an early age. If you're going to be a self-defining grown-up, then you learn to do that to perfection by being a self-defining boy, girl, and young man or young woman earlier on in life. Fifthly, or 5, you decide who you are and who you are going to be. Well, that's part and parcel of what we've just been discussing about defining yourself. You decide who you are and who you are going to be. 6, you decide what you are going to do and when and where you're going to do it. Again, we've hinted at that before, so we're just reiterating the idea of autonomy, making personal free will choices. And remember, this is supposed to be a free will planet. If you send a boy or girl to school, the first thing that they learn is that they do not make decisions and have no free will choice. Number 7, this is absolutely fundamental. Whereas in the classroom, you do not have a voice or a say, it is estimated that teachers speak for between 80 and 90% of the time. That means that boys and girls are splitting between 30 of them and sometimes more, 10 to 20% of the speaking time, maybe even less. So that means that you hardly ever get a say. And if you don't toe the party line, then you will be set upon, you'll be humiliated, and even punished for saying or asking something that is out of line. Number 8, you can mature without undue interference from sinister agendas. Well, we hinted at some of those sinister agendas in part 1. Not going to go into depth or detail right now, but those of you who are awake or waking up will know exactly what I'm talking about. Hypersexualization is just one of those sinister agendas, as well as the unwarranted medicalization through sterilization, through vaccinations at school. And I use that word sterilization cautiously, but if the agenda is to reduce the population, then sterilization of boys and girls at school would be a direct way of ensuring that population reduction. Number 9, you can even vent your dark side to become whole. Well, this is something that no one ever talks about. Whereas at home, you can have your tantrums and you can be emotionally violent, you try doing that at school. Now, I'm not advocating physical or emotional violence amongst children or amongst anyone, but the point is, if you do get upset, you have to be able to release that upset, at least talk about it, and better still, live it, process it in the real world. But classrooms are too sterile. It would rock the boat. It would upset the silence. It would upset the teacher's rhythm and would be stamped out. I do appreciate that there are some schools up and down the country that have special sessions where children can express themselves and express their emotions, etc., etc. But that is not generalized, and it's certainly not part of the standard curriculum. Number 10, you can be yourself. This is the bottom line, really. What's the point of being anyone else? If you go to school, you will almost certainly end up being someone else. That's the whole point of schooling. It's to create a version of you, label you with a name rather than simply just addressing you directly. And we look at that in our longer videos, Disclosure 2021 and Disclosure 2022, which should be released in October, November. You end up not being yourself, but being the legal person name, which is the lawful aspect to this. But you also end up being someone that fits in, who does not necessarily want to fit in, who just simply wants to be themselves. So away from school, you can celebrate being yourself. If that poses problems, they can be resolved in the real world. And that's how we grow. We grow through conflict resolution, through dealing with doubt, self-doubt, and through redirecting our thoughts and emotions towards more positive outcomes. This is much more unlikely to happen and much more difficult to manage in a school environment that does not have this as its core agenda. Part 4. So what do we miss out on at school? Well, you miss out on indoctrination. You miss out on militarization. In schools up and down the country, staff are not being employed, they're being deployed, so that they are organizing military-style boot camp morning assemblies where the children file in single file, which is sinister in itself, and then made to sit still with arms crossed and legs not crossed and looking straight ahead, and only given permission to relax when the leader of the assembly says so. So these assembly leaders are very often ex-military. And even if they're not ex-military, they have a bent towards tyrannical, totalitarian dictatorship and dictatorship of the environment. What else do you miss out on? Humiliation. You could be humiliated if you stand out in any way, or say anything out of line, or get bullied in and out of the classroom. You also miss out on something that we've hinted at before, mediocritization. The system needs you to be mediocre. It cannot cope with excellence. I myself was moved from one school to another because I was learning too fast. It is particularly important to avoid this kind of treatment if you are or fit into one of the following categories. Introverts are very, very difficult to handle in the system. The system is based on a presumption of extroversion. And if you are an introvert or have an introverted tendency, and your boy or girl has the same, then you will understand what I'm talking about when I say that if you are quiet or prefer peace and quiet, the extroverts will say something like, "What's the matter with you?" Being forced to speak up when you really don't want to is child abuse. Introverts need peace, and they certainly don't need to be seen by other classrooms when they are visible through transparent class walls or corridor walls. So this is torture. Just being in a room with 30 or more other boys and girls and staff all day long is torture for introverts. And that can impinge on their mental health and emotional well-being, maybe for the rest of their lives. It is also particularly important to protect the gifted and talented. As I said before, there's no room for anything other than mediocre and toe the line uniformity and conformity. Your gifts and talents are not welcome in the classroom. They need to be nurtured out of school. The third category of boys and girls are called liminals. Liminals are basically people who don't fit in. Yes, they may be gifted and talented. Yes, they may be introverts, but there's something about them, even if they're not introverted or particularly gifted or talented, there's something about them that doesn't fit the paradigm. It doesn't fit the norm. They have a tendency to think for themselves. They want to express themselves at certain moments when the teacher is insisting that they do something in particular, but they don't want to do it. They want to do something else or simply sit staring out of the window, as I did when I was at school, only to be told that that was going to jeopardize my entire school career and beyond. Staring out of the window is a gift. Staring anywhere is a gift. In Japanese, it's known as boketo, which is the art of contemplating the meaning of life, the purpose of life, or simply just being, something that is not encouraged in a culture like ours or in many other cultures, to be honest. The fourth category of young boys and girls that we need to protect are HSPs, highly sensitive persons. If you're highly sensitive, then a bullying teacher simply approaching you will scare you witless and you will be traumatized, and micro trauma will be heaped upon micro trauma. This will have all kinds of negative effects on your personality, on your emotional makeup. So these are the four categories that need to be particularly protected from school. And if they have not been withdrawn, they need to be withdrawn as soon as possible. So that's it for Home Education Alert Part 2. There is something that I could add, that if you have a newborn, or you are a mum-to-be, or you are a family-to-be, then one way to preempt all this trouble and strife is simply not to register that boy or girl with the Registrar of Births and Deaths, and simply to have the natural live birth recorded and keep a record for future reference. There will be implications potentially for bank accounts, but one thing we do know is that if a boy or girl is not registered, then the authorities have no say and have no proprietary right to dictate terms and conditions to their life. There is anecdotal evidence of a woman who had a visit from social workers and police who stole all 4 of her children. The next day, they brought one back, and I know this to be true because I've met the woman. They brought one back, and she said, "Why have you brought one back?" And they said, "This one is yours." And that was the only one she had not registered at birth. So proprietary right is maintained when we don't even register at all. And even if we have registered at birth, then simply not registering for any school, keeping our door closed and locked and our mouth shut, will make sure that there are no negative outcomes. We stand our ground because we are the ones we have been waiting for. The tyranny has to end now. And we can make sure that it ends now by ensuring that our boys and girls stay safe. On that note, we'll conclude this particular video. Stay tuned for more videos, and also the live in-person talk, which is the evil of modern schooling, which I will be doing around the country. Live in-person talk, the evil of modern schooling. Also, please subscribe to the website, thepeopleslawyer.uk.com, to the YouTube channel for The People's Lawyer UK, and for the Telegram channel, The People's Lawyer. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you sometime soon, either live or online.